Hi everyone, welcome back to Novel Idea. My name is Dia, and today I have a couple of things. I'm going to do a quick wrap up because I only have just a couple of books from this past week, so I'll do that. And then I want to do the Victorian Literature Journey Tag. I was tagged by Courtney at Courtney Reads a while back, and Victober is almost over. So I want to make sure I get this in before Victober is over. So I am going to be doing that tag as soon as we wrap everything up. So let's get started. All right, so the first book that I wanted to tell you about is Making It So. This is by Patrick Stewart. It is a brand new biography that has just come out. I was able to pick it up from the library and read it. I have loved Patrick Stewart for a very long time. I enjoyed it overall. I really wish that we would have gotten a little bit more internal processing of life, just those internal thoughts and the way that things, interpersonal kind of stuff. We got that in his childhood, but then from the time that he started acting on, it was just basically moving from one acting job to the next. And we heard little bits of the behind the scenes stuff with his life, but we didn't get as much as what I was hoping for about his marriages, about his kids, about how he was feeling as a father, as a husband, and we just didn't get as much as that. It is definitely about his acting career. And it was still lovely. I still enjoyed it. It's just not quite what I wanted. So that is Making It So by Patrick Stewart. That is all I finished this past week. I have on the go City of Thieves. I'm reading this with Shelley Swearingen, and I am almost finished. In fact, I'll probably finish today, but I didn't want to wait to make the video. So I will tell you about that next week. I also, next week, should be finished with Nickleby. This is a reread for me by Charles Dickens, and I'm reading that with Kelly from Kelly Reads a Lot, and we're having such a good time. Tiffany was reading it with us, but she got a little bit behind and she decided to just read it on her own. And so I'm still trying to wheedle information out of her as far as what she is reading and what she thinks about it and all of that kind of thing. But Kelly and I are reading this together, and we are almost done. 3 more days and we'll be finished with Nicholas. This is my favorite part of the book. These last few chapters are my absolute favorite part. So really looking forward to wrapping that up. And then lastly, I have Over to Candleford, and this is book 2 in the Lark Rise to Candleford series, and it's by Flora Thompson. And I'm reading this with Stephanie from Ms. Richards Reads, and has been so good. It's again one that I wish wasn't ending. I have really, really, really loved this series of stories. It's charming. It's so endearing and full of childhood wonder, and I'm just loving it. I'm loving it, and I think Stephanie is too. So all of those will be wrapped up next week. Tiffany did ask me if I would like to pick up the toll with her, so we'll see if that happens, but that may also be another one that I am wrapping up at the end of next week. So those are the books. Now let's do the tag. So this was created as a spin-off of the Shakespeare Journey Tag, Tilly from Tilly's Shelf and Ros from Scallydandling About the Books decided to just change the questions from Shaketember to Victober questions. And so this is the result of that. And as I said at the beginning, I was tagged by Courtney at Courtney Reads. So we're gonna jump in. All right, I have my computer and the questions. So here we go. Question number 1. What was your first experience reading Victorian literature and how was it? So my first experience reading Victorian literature to myself was probably a little bit of Beatrix Potter, but also Edward Lear. And he just does these wonderful, nonsensical, silly kind of poems. The Owl and the Pussycat is one. The Jumblies, I don't know if you guys know that one, but that was another one. Daddy Longlegs and the Fly. So he just has several. And then these are all illustrated by the original illustrator, Leslie Brooke. Looks like the verses in here were published between 1862 to 1920. There's the Owl and the Pussycat. Got something on the page, I don't know what that is, but there they are sailing away in their boat. There's the pig with the ring in his nose. So Edward Lear was probably my first experience reading Victorian literature, and it was wonderful. I loved it. Next probably would have been Rudyard Kipling. I absolutely loved like Just So stories and Rikki Tikki Tavi and all of those. And then beyond that, when I kind of got just, you know, a little more grown up, a little bit bigger, a little bit more ready to take on some meatier subjects, I had Jane Eyre, I had Charles Dickens. I think Oliver was the first Dickens that I read, and I loved it. I still love it to this day. It's wonderful. So those would probably be my first experiences reading Victorian literature. Has the reading of a Victorian book ever brought you to tears? If so, tell us more. And you know, there probably was one or two things that brought me to tears as a child, but I just don't cry at books, and I don't remember ever crying at a Victorian literature. It's just that I'm not made up that way. That's not the way I work. So you want to get me crying, put me in front of a crowd of people and ask me to talk about something that's important to me. Then I'll cry. But it's nerves. That's what makes me cry. So no, the answer is no. I don't remember ever crying at a book. Are there any people who have played a significant role in your Victorian literature journey? So my grandpa was a big fan of different kinds of Victorian literature. I think I mentioned that he memorized Aurora Leigh, and after reading it for Victober, I don't know that he had memorized the whole thing. I think he had memorized book 1 of Aurora Leigh, but I don't know that he had memorized the whole thing. Anyway, I think Grandpa probably was a big influence because I loved listening to his kind of Scottish brogue that would come out at those times when he would be reciting something from boyhood. And I think the other one that I would say had a big influence on me, Victorian literature wise, was a teacher that I had in school. It was a history teacher. It was not a literature teacher. And yet the things that he taught us about the Victorian times really pushed us to read more Victorian literature. And so, yeah, I would say those two. Do you have a favorite film or TV adaptation of a Victorian book? And what about one that you would like to see be made? So, I guess I do. I haven't seen anything in a very long time, but when I was little, I loved the musical Oliver, and it's the one with Mark Lester, and it's the one that is just Oliver with the exclamation point. I love that one. The music in it is just fantastic, and that little Oliver is so perfect to who the book says he is. And so I loved that adaptation. We'll go with that. What about one that I would like to see made? I think I would go with like The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. I'm so surprised that that one doesn't have a really good adaptation. I think it really lends itself. It's got a good amount of drama to it. So does Agnes Grey. I don't know if Agnes Grey has an adaptation or not, but I would love to see either one of those. Number 5, which character in Victorian literature most resembles you, or do you identify the most with? So I even put this question to other people because I honestly don't know. I think that I, in my younger years, would have identified with Jane Eyre quite a bit. I asked my friends in Discord group about, can you think of any Victorian character who is a woman who married for love, stayed happily married, was a happy mother, and also had children that grew up to be respected and that respected her and was not a complete ditz? And it was hard. It was hard to find anyone. My best answer would be Susan Sowerby from The Secret Garden. I think that she, loved her husband. She loved her children. She was a good mom, and she had some smarts. And so probably Susan Sowerby would be my choice, but people argue as to whether or not Frances Hodgson Burnett is a Victorian author because she lived in America at the time that she was writing her books. But she was born in Great Britain and lived in India for a time before moving to the United States. And so I don't know if you would even take Susan Sowerby as a Victorian character, but she would probably be the one that I identify most with. So we're gonna go with her. Number 6 is, do you have a favorite moment, scene, or line from Victorian literature? Tell us about it or read it to us. I have way too many. You guys, I will read you the opening of Nicholas Nickleby. just a minute. All right. There once lived in a sequestered part of the country of Devonshire one Godfrey Nickleby, a worthy gentleman who, taking it into his head rather late in life that he must get married, and not being young enough or rich enough to aspire to the hand of a lady of fortune, he had wedded an old flame out of mere attachment, who in her turn had taken him for the same reason. Thus, two people who could not afford to play cards for money sometimes sit down to a quiet game of love. Number 7, does any Victorian literature intimidate you, and if so, why? So I wouldn't say intimidated so much as I would say I'm not really interested in some Victorian authors. I have read enough Hardy to know that I'm not interested in reading any more Hardy. I have read enough W. Somerset Maugham to know that I don't want to read any more Maugham. I have read enough. So there are certain ones that I'm just not interested in, but it's not because I'm intimidated by them. It's because I have tried books by them and I just don't like it. So I don't have any desire to read more by them. Number 8, what tips would you give to someone early on in their Victorian literature journey? Start short. Find shorter works of literature that you are interested in. Do a Google search on Victorian works under 300 pages about whatever subject, and see if you can't find some works of Victorian literature that are short that you could really get behind and sink your teeth into because you're interested in the subject as well. The literature, the rhythm, the swirl and sway of the words will make itself easier to you the more that you read them, but finding something that you really want to read is also very important. Victorian literature has thrillers, it has suspense, it has romance, it has history, it has all kinds of other things, political issues, all of that. So you just need to find something that you're really interested in and then find a shorter work about that. It even has comedy. What is your top recommended read for other Victorian literature readers? I love Jane Eyre, and I think it's a really simple, easy one that holds your attention, pulls you in, pulls you forward. And so I would say Jane Eyre is a great one. My favorite Victorian works are Jane Eyre, Nicholas Nickleby by Charles Dickens, Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. I just think they're wonderful. I don't think you can go wrong with them. So that is everything. I think there have been so many tags for this video. I don't think I'm going to tag anyone, but I hope that this has been enjoyable. Thank you so much for coming by. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again in another video very soon.